Hey guys, Brett Wood here, author of the 3+1 Plan and chairman of YPC Group, where we help you to build a thriving property portfolio so you can live the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, but in such a way that you're not creating a second job or actually working yourself into an early grave. So what I wanted to do today was we've been running the webinars now for a while, and we've compiled hundreds of questions that you guys have been asking. So I want to take those, and what I've done is I've broken them down into a number of really key questions that most of you guys are repeatedly asking. And what I've done is I want to present them to you so you get that level of education. I've always been a massive supporter of free education. And so that's what I want to do for you guys today, is really give you, I guess, what most people out there are concerned about in the market now, about property investment, about strategies, about structures, about all sorts of things, the questions that you guys have been asking. So, it's not now me telling you what you should be thinking, it's you guys actually feeding back. And I love that about the social media, and I love that about webinars. So yeah, sit back, relax, and let's get started. All right guys, so a really good question here, and it's a question that actually probably 99% of the clients ask us when they first start working with us. And the question quite simply is, how much capital do you need to get started? What do you actually need in cash in terms of actual available equity or available monies to invest in property? So I make it really simple because we're about building a portfolio, okay? And what you'll find is that it's all easy to say, well, if you buy 100,000 property, it's this. If you buy 120,000, it's this, and work all that out. But just to make it really simple, because at the end of the day, building a portfolio should be simple, okay? What I do is I talk about that one property in the UK, that's everywhere outside London, is going to cost you about £35,000. And I'll qualify that in a sec. One property in London is going to cost you about £75,000. Now, the reason I use those two figures is that when we sit down with clients, one of the first things we do is we work out how much available equity they have. So if they've got £100,000 to spend, okay, then realistically what they could get was one London property, all right? Or they could get, and I didn't actually write this in here, they could probably get, 2 UK properties, all right? So, this or this, okay? So it'd be a choice. Now, realistically, if they had an extra 10 grand, they could probably get one UK and one London, or they could get 3 UK, all right? Now, the important point with these figures, okay, is that we're not just talking about to buy the property, we're talking about to buy it and hold it for a period of 2 years. Because when you're working with YPC and when you're doing portfolio management, everything is not just about what it's going to cost to buy now. It's not just about those figures, so about the deposit and the costs and all that. It's about now you own it, how are you going to afford to buy it? And using things like mortgage cost averaging. So all of our mortgages here, when we calculate them, will be at 6%, what we call mortgage cost averaging. Because that's really important, because you don't know where the interest rates are going to head. Okay, so it's no use preempting it. It's no use saying, well, now they're really low, so I'll calculate my cash flow on there. What we do is we work on an average, and that's 6%. So when we're talking about 35 grand, we're talking about buying it might cost us £30,000. Holding it might cost us 5. All right, that's when you take into account service charges, ground rent, void periods, all these things. Okay. Now, ideally, lots of people say, but I only want cash flow positive. Well, great. What does that actually mean? Because, I'll record a different video on this, but a lot of times people think that it's just the rent less the mortgage is cash flow positive. It isn't. You've got to add all your costs and your allowances in there. And that's what we do for these two figures. Now, these figures too, these are considering that it's a stock property. In other words, you're going to buy it and complete on it. If you're dealing with off-plan, then potentially you can get into an off-plan for say £10,000 or £20,000 now, but then it might be 3 years before you're going to come up with the completion funds. So we can cash flow all those sort of things in. If you know that you've got a big bonus coming in, in January next year, and it's not due for completion until 5 months after that, then potentially, if you've only got 20k cash, you can buy that property, exchange on it, knowing that that bonus is coming in. Now, obviously, you've got to make sure you get that money in, because if you're going to exchange, you're tied down. Now, if we're looking at £150,000, okay, that you've got, you can get one property in London and probably 2 in the UK. All right, so all I'm doing is I'm saying 75 plus 70, comes under 145. So I'm actually under the 150. I can afford that. The other, 50,000, you get one property in the UK, or potentially on top of that, one property in the UK, 35,000, plus maybe an off plan in the UK. But of course, you've got to make sure you've got some money coming in due for when completion happens. 70K, you could get 2 in London, 35 and 35, or, sorry, 2 in the UK, or 1 in London, okay? Now, what I want to talk to you about now, so this is just a really simple calculation. It just makes things very simple. So if you can see, well, I've got 35K sitting in the bank account, not doing a lot, earning 2%, and then when you take into account inflation, I'm not making any money on it. Well, then you can put it into property. Obviously, you're going to get the capital growth side. You're going to get the rental yield now, which is there. But so what we do here, this is all about, just making it simple for you to understand how much money you need to invest. But you've also got to work out where the money's coming from. Because if you've got it as cash, and let's say you had £100,000 cash, well then you could potentially invest £100,000 cash. And I'll say potentially because I'll come across the sleep test in a minute. But if you're remortgaging from your home, okay, so you're actually having to go to the home and take out £100,000, what you have to do is you have to allow for that cash flow, the fact that your mortgage is going to go up by 100,000, and that's going to cost you money. So what we do is we do 6% of the 100,000, which is 6K per year, all right? Multiplied by 2 years is 12K. So even though you were drawing 100,000 out of the thing, you would only spend or invest 88,000. So it's 100 less to 12, 88,000. And by doing that, you've got 2 years of mortgage coverage for that increase, all right? And that will allow you to sleep better, certainly. The other side of it is this, all right? You might be sitting there and this 100,000K cash is all the cash you've got. Well, prudent financial management will tell you that what you should have is probably about 3 months of cash just sitting there in an account somewhere. And by doing that, you can happily pass the sleep test. For the most part, I don't talk about 3 months. What I talk about is when I speak to clients, I say, how much do you need to go to bed at night, in the bank, sitting there doing nothing, to go to bed and sleep fulfilled without having to worry about your finances? For some people that's 5 grand, for some it's 10, for some it's 20, for some it's much more, okay? And by doing that, you might say that, right, if I've got to have 10K sitting in a bank account, in which case this 100K minus 10 leaves 90. Or perhaps even this 100K, if you didn't have the money on the side, less 12, less 10, you're left with 78. So that just gives you a really good introduction to how much money you need, and then some of the cash flow considerations that you need to actually bring into that. It's not just if you've got £100,000 that is as simple as going, right, let's buy 100,000 worth of property. Because what you also find is you might have £100,000, but you only spend, say, 70 of it buying property, and the other money is set aside to provide for the property, void periods and all those sort of other things that can pop up. Okay, excellent guys, thanks. So guys, I'm sure you found that information really valuable. The first step really now is that you need to get a plan. You need to actually, work out exactly how you're going to put this in place. So what I encourage you to do is come in and sit down with us, talk to us, grab a coffee with us. And what we can do is we can actually start mapping out what your plan is. Guys, I'm looking forward to meeting you real soon at either one of our webinars or perhaps a seminar, or if you come to one of our offices around the world. Have a great day, and remember, live with passion.